A group of Vietnamese labor leaders sent a letter to Congress on Thursday saying the TPP, or Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Bill, will destroy efforts to improve workers' rights in their country. The letter was published in the Huffington Post, and it reads, quote, "The U.S. Congress should not cast away its leverage to push for such reforms by passing Fast Track. If Fast Track were passed before the above abuses are actually stopped, the hope of any real reprieve from Vietnam's oppressed workers would fade," unquote. Of course, President Obama continues to insist that the TPP with 11 other nations will improve labor standards in countries with terrible human rights records, such as Vietnam. But this letter obviously is pointing otherwise. And our next guest was recently in Vietnam specifically to look into this and to talk to some of these same people who wrote this letter. Jim Keady is a former Asbury Park Council member turned small business owner who's now running for assembly. I believe it's the 30th Legislative Assembly seat in the New Jersey legislature. That includes a good portion of the Jersey Shore. He's been working with a New Jersey organization called Finish the Job, which has, of course, been the reconstruction and rebuilding parts since Hurricane Sandy devastated the region. He's also been an activist for many years in defense of labor rights and against sweatshops, particularly in Southeast Asia, where you used to hear him here regularly on WBAI targeting Nike's egregious violations. He was also a soccer coach at St. John's University who took a very principled stand specifically relating to similar issues around the sportswear they were using in the university. So Jim Keady, it's great to have you back on. It's been a long time.
It has. It's good to talk to you, Mario.
So Jim, first tell us a little bit about this letter and your response to it, because I know that I understand that you went to Vietnam in May. This after Obama made a pitch for the TPP deal in front of a Nike facility in Oregon. I'm sure that was kind of driving you crazy. What led you to go to Vietnam and your reaction to this full court press that Obama is carrying out right now for TPP?
Sure. Let me just give a little bit of background first. You'd mentioned, I used to be a coach at St. John's University in New York City back in the late 90s. I was coaching there. While I was coaching, I was doing a grad degree in theology. I'm writing a paper about Nike's labor practices and light of Catholic social teaching. Found if you wanted to pick a company that violated everything that we stood for, Nike was it. At the same time that I was learning about Nike's sweatshop abuses, the university's negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract. Part of the deal, I got to wear and promote Nike's products. I said I didn't want to be part of the deal. I'm eventually told you wear Nike and drop this or get out. I held my ground. I'm forced to resign. I become the first athlete in the world to say no to Nike because of the sweatshop issue. That was big news. I start getting invited to college campuses to talk about the issue, and my critics were telling me, you don't know what you're talking about. Those are great jobs. They can live like kings on those sweatshop wages in developing countries. And I knew my critics were wrong, but I wanted to prove them wrong. The competitor in me, the athlete, wanted to prove them wrong. So in the summer of 2000, I moved to Indonesia. I went to live with factory workers. I tried to survive on a Nike sweatshop wage. At the time, it was $1.25 a day. I lost 25 pounds that month living like a Nike sweatshop worker in a 9x9 cement box, sleeping on the floor with the rats and the cockroaches. And I met all these women who made the clothes and the shoes that I wore as an athlete for years, and I never thought twice about who they were and what their lives were like. And I promised them, I will go home, I will advocate for you, I'll tell your stories. And I thought I was going to do it for, 5 or 6 months. I ended up doing it for 15 years, and I've lectured all over the country on it, more than 500 universities, 40-something states. I've been brought down to Capitol Hill to brief members of Congress about it. I've been brought in by corporate leaders, union leaders to talk about the issue. I was so shocked when on May 8th, I'm listening to President Obama speak from Nike's campus talking about, how great Nike is and they're a model for global trade. And he's holding them up as an example for this TPP deal. Now, I always like to get to the heart of the matter. So I very quickly designed a research project in collaboration with Senator Sanders' office to go over to Vietnam. So I spent the last week of May in Vietnam meeting with Nike factory workers and meeting with the leading labor dissidents in Vietnam. And when I first got there and I was talking to these guys, not so much the workers, they have no idea what the TPP is and this trade deal is being negotiated. The labor advocates certainly did. And they were in support of it because they had been sold a bill of goods by the Obama administration. that this was just going to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And over the course of the week, as I got to talk to them and educate them, give them a more critical analysis of this deal, one of the results is this letter that they sent to the administration yesterday saying, in theory, we believe in the TPP. We want to be in partnership with America. We'd rather be trading more with America than with China. But for us to support this thing, there have to be some real reforms that come before fast track authority, before the TPP gets signed. And they put out a whole laundry list of items that they want to see addressed. They want to see their colleagues that have been jailed simply for exercising basic human rights to be released. They want a commitment on living wages. They want a commitment on independent organizing and the right to form independent trade unions. The other thing they need is a massive commitment from the United States in terms of financing and technical and tactical support. There are no independent labor NGOs other than this fledgling group called Viet Labor that is organizing in Vietnam, and they're not even sure how to do the organizing. The last night of my trip, I met with 11 of them. In 2 hours, they wanted me to teach them how to form an independent trade union. And I said to them, look, you need an army of people to come in here. And just looking at Nike alone, there are 330,000 Nike factory workers in Vietnam. They're the largest private employer in Vietnam. If you did a modest ratio of 200 workers for every organizer, you need more than 1,500 organizers to go in on the ground there. And who's going to train them? There is zero capacity. So here the president is on Nike's campus talking about how great the TPP is, and Vietnam is going to open up to freedom of association. They're going to have independent unions. Oh, great. The rhetoric's wonderful. What's the plan?
Right. Right, and that's what that's what the labor leaders wrote to Obama and to the Congress specifically that's getting ready to vote today on the TPP fast track that Obama has been pushing for. It's 7:56, Jim. I think next week we're going to have you back on to talk specifically about your campaign in New Jersey for the seat, the 30th legislative district in New Jersey, and your confrontation with Chris Christie, which was pretty interesting around the Sandy cleanup. But how do you connect your opposition or your concerns about TPP, about Vietnam, with the voters in New Jersey as you're walking around and campaigning along the Jersey Shore?
Well, first, I'm infamously or famously, depending on which camp you're in, known as the sit down and shut up guy. I'm the guy back in October 2014 who was standing up for Hurricane Sandy victims. And the governor screamed at me, I didn't know what I was talking about, and I should sit down and shut up. Well, I'm clearly not sitting down, and I'm not shutting up. I'm standing up and speaking out for the people of the 30th District and all the residents of New Jersey. If people want to learn more about my campaign, they can check out my campaign website at jimkeady.com, JimKeady.com. And with regard to the TPP and how, it links, a lot of people say in the district might say, well, why are you worried about labor rights in Vietnam, and why are you concerned about this TPP deal? That's international stuff. Since 1994, New Jersey has lost 219,000 manufacturing jobs. This TPP deal goes through in its current form, at least what we know of it, because the deal has been negotiated in secret. You could see thousands more manufacturing jobs getting sucked out of New Jersey. All you need to do, jump on a train from where I live down on the shore in Spring Lake and take it up to Manhattan and go on that Northeast corridor. And when you get up into, the Newark area and or the more urban areas, and just look at all the bombed out factories. And that's what happens when we sign trade deals that only benefit transnational corporations and their bottom lines. We need our elected officials, both at the local level and the state level, to be pushing our administration to sign trade deals that benefit the working class, the middle class, not just here, but also in those countries that we're going to do the trade with.
That's right, Jim. Well, we're going to get you back on sometime next week. We have a long week next week and a lot to cover, but I want to continue to talk about this, obviously the vote today, but also about some of the other issues that you're dealing with in New Jersey and the post-Sandy reconstruction and the real propaganda that the Governor Christie has used to make it look as if something has been done and apparently not. So, Jim Keady, I want to thank you for being with us this morning, and let's be in touch for next week.
That sounds great. It's my pleasure. Again, I want to invite all your listeners to check out my website, jimkeady.com.
Jim Keady, former Asbury Park council member turned small business owner. He's running for the 30th Legislative District Assembly seat in New Jersey, and a longtime activist in defense of labor rights, especially around Nike sweatshops. So that's about it, Michael G.
Mario,
we've run out of time.
But we settled in very nicely. We started out a little bit rocky, but we handled it. And now we're on the way out.
Yeah, we'll post some highlights on the WBAI highlights page, WBAI.org. Check out the morning show